Hello, fellow watchers and enjoyers. Piggy, hello, and Ash.
Hello.
We are here from Watching Walford. We are currently in the 80s. We are here to bring you another edition of our classic podcast, which is Classic EastEnders. If you like, it should be pretty obvious. You clicked on this. If you're expecting us to talk about Stacey and our OnlyFans, you can go check our other podcast. Because this is all classic, baby. You know, we're in the 80s. There's currently a lot of paedophile celebrities, but we're in the 80s, so we don't know they're paedophiles yet. So we're just chilling out to them while we're looking at the 80s and we see people. But we're not here to talk about the paedophiles in the 80s. I digress.
It's funny that your one stickling point about the 80s is that there were a lot of nonsense in positions of power. That's like the one thing you know about the 80s. That's it. That's an entire catalogue of jokes.
What do you know about the 80s, Piggy? Oh, they're all paedophiles and Hulk Hogan ran right.
Disco, motherfucker.
There was a lot.
Not just nonsense. Like, come on. We're going to start the podcast every week saying, well, the 80s was full of paedophiles, weren't it? Yes, lovely. Set the fucking scene properly, Piggy.
But yeah, the 80s, we're here to talk about the 80s. We're not here to talk about the political views of the 80s, Maggie Thatcher's England, or anything like that. We probably will, like, when it comes to when we're talking about the middle class, the lower class, and the higher class, and the three main classes, or four. I don't know what the fourth one would be, the royals.
Mate, we're so far down, I don't even know what that one is.
Like, I think it goes, so you have lower class, middle class, upper class, and then the royals. Because the royal family rules England. Don't know why. I know that they barely have power now, but like, it's the 80s, they have power. Princess Diana's still alive. She's a good 12 years left in her until she's killed. But we're not here to talk about Princess Diana. Although, shout out to you, Princess Di. I hope you're watching this. Don't know how you'll be watching this, but I hope you are. So yeah, welcome to the Classic Podcast. How have you been, Ash?
Been alright, mate, honestly. It's been a busy week. We just finished recording Love Island. It's going to date the podcast. Third classic podcast are about to go. But yeah, I'm doing good, mate. I'm doing good. I'm feeling refreshed. I'm feeling ready to go, and I'm willing to pump more of these out. How are you doing, Piggy?
I'm looking forward to these. Obviously, I love classic EastEnders. It's just I have to try and figure out what the main storylines are. And by me trying to figure it out, I just go, look, do you know the main storylines? Thanks. And Ash like, fuck's sake, Piggy. This is your podcast. Yeah, I know, but I need help, okay? I need help. And he's like, oh, fine, I'll do it. I've been good. At the time of recording this, just so people know, we're still in July. We're recording this on the 31st of July. So we've just wrapped up Love Island. When you're seeing this, you'll maybe wonder, wow, there is more classic EastEnders coming out. Yeah, it's because we've just wrapped up Love Island. Before that, we were recording it and then going, now time to watch Love Island. Woohoo! But yeah, Love Island doesn't exist yet. We're in the 80s. So yeah, when we get to like 2015 EastEnders, then we can talk about Love Island.
Exactly.
And when we get to 2015 EastEnders, we'll watch all of the 10 series of Love Island back to back. I'll make you that promise. Just because I know we won't get I just know we won't get the 2015 EastEnders.
I mean, it will be about fucking 20 years in the fucking can.
Anyway, so what? So we're currently in 2023 at the time of recording this. So it'll be 2043. We'll be in 2015.
But yeah,
Fuck.
All right, Piggy. What storylines are we doing today?
Well, firstly, just grab a cup of tea, grab a Pepsi, grab a Coke. Not a Nick Cotton's Coke, just a normal Coke.
He doesn't do Coke, he does heroin.
Yeah, a lot of celebrities did heroin. So yeah, just grab a coke, grab a whatever. Enjoy us rambling for about an hour and a half while we go through the nitty gritty, the muddy woodies, the man from the hood, storylines. So Saeed, the first one is Saeed and Neymar's marriage isn't all it seems. Debbie Wilkins and
Yes.
Andy O'Brien arrive on the square. They're middle class, and we'll obviously get into like the whole again. It will go back to Thatcher's England, which we will get into. And I know people are like, "Why are you bringing Thatcher into this? She ruled England in the 80s. There's nothing I can say." Yeah, it will always go back to Thatcher, until she's dead. So the next storyline after that is Nick Cotton versus the Square, and the minorities fight back, which is still the Nick Cotton versus the Square. We're just roping the minorities in there as well, because 80s racism, cool. So yeah, let's get into the main storylines. Yeah, so Saeed and Neymar's marriage isn't all it seems. Following from February to March to the start of April, because we're currently at the start of April now. We're in the start of April of Classic EastEnders. So like we're nearly halfway through the year. Nearly.
Jesus.
Because sorry, just to sidetrack it very quick. For the first few years of EastEnders will fly by because we'll be doing two weeks of it, basically.
Yeah.
So like every 2 weeks we'll be in a new month, and that will last till 94. But yeah. So woohoo! But yeah, Saeed and Neymar's marriage is not all. We've known from February that there's something in between them. And no, it's not his penis and her vagina.
Definitely is on that one. They're not at that stage yet at all.
No. They're kind of like Red Bull and Coke. Does it taste nice? No. Would you drink it? Maybe. Would it give you a heartburn and possibly a heart attack?
Yes.
Definitely. But yeah, why is there a rock between them two? And not Dwayne Johnson. He's only a teenager at this point. He's not even the Rock yet.
I can immediately take this, just because Saeed and Neymar are... Well, Neymar especially is one of my favourite characters of the 80s. So, essentially... Obviously, we'll get into it later because obviously Nick Cotton's kind of targeting all the minorities in the square. And both Saeed and Neymar have like Indian heritage. They're both like their home's Bangladesh. Well, I say their home, their family's home's Bangladesh. I'm very sure that both of them were born and raised in England, you know? But it's kind of like obviously India at the time did arranged marriages and just kind of slotted people together. But they do struggle because ultimately people don't really... Well, they just view them as them Asians, as Lou Beale would call them. So obviously they don't... Like, they tried to kind of get along with, like, the Western world and kind of adopt some of the customs. But ultimately, it's kind of... It's always a bit of a struggle. And one thing we'll begin to see is that obviously Neymar and Saeed, they don't really have the best of relationships because, as just said, it was an arranged marriage. So ultimately, well, they don't always see eye to eye on things. As we've seen, like, the show tell us, is that, well, Neymar's the responsible one. She's the one who actually learns all the stuff and, like, knows what she wants to do. She wants to, like, she now wants to step out into the modern world. She wants to use a bloody, like, a clothes washer, a washing machine. She wants to use some of them. She wants to get a bit more in the future. Whilst Saeed is happy to rest on the laurels of his family and just act like he's owed something, which he very clearly isn't. So yeah, what does Saeed and Neymar do in this week of episodes, Piggy?
Before I get into it, I just want to say I don't agree with arranged marriages. I think if you want to get married, you basically you just don't go to the nightclub, right? And then you see Ava there, 53, dancing away like she's got no back or hip. You don't go up to her and go, "Oh, you love, yeah, what about me? I want to marry you." We haven't even talked. Yeah, but I want to marry you. And then you get married, and then 5 years later, like, I fucking regretted this. All in my ear, yak yak yak, all in my face, like Jesus Christ. Obviously, I don't care. Like, if your political stance is you want to believe in arranged marriages, I don't care if you do believe in them. I just think if you want to get married to the person you love, not just the person your dad goes to the shop and picks out a Barbie doll that you like. And it's like, marry that. All right, dad, grand. How much are you paying for the wedding? 50 grand. Grand. That's grand. Like, it's just my opinion. But if you want to give your opinion, chime in now. If you don't, then just sit back and be the good little boy and just be like, arranged marriages. Whoopee! But go ahead if you want an opinion. If you want to voice your opinion.
On me?
Yeah, you.
I mean, arranged marriages are a bit archaic, and not really a big fan of them personally. Yeah, let's just let's just scrap them all. And obviously, EastEnders is doing a kind of a. We will slowly see how their marriage unfolds, and we'll see how the characters develop. I just wanted to read an extract from EastEnders: The Inside Story that kind of talks about how they viewed Naima and Saeed and how they wrote them initially. He is quarter English, 3/4 Bengali, and she is wholly Bengali. Their parents were originally from Bangladesh, formerly East Pakistan, and they are Muslims and cousins. Naima had an easier childhood. She became aware that she couldn't accept the traditional role of an Indian wife, but she wasn't enough of a rebel to leave home and adopt a totally different lifestyle. Saeed's mother's father became seriously ill. It was decided that Saeed's parents should return home to India, and a hasty marriage was arranged between Naima and Saeed so the young couple could run the food store. They're in a confusing situation, accepting the customs of their parents, yet, because of having been born, brought up, and educated in this country, feeling they're slightly English. Neither of them is particularly docile, having lived through the jungle of the school playground and the cut and thrust of working class urban life. Saeed and Naima will make a big effort to mix, and most of the time, fail.
Wait, they're cousins?
Apparently.
Sweet home Alabama.
I mean, cousins aren't really as bad as siblings. It's still weird. Still weird. Still in the bloodline, like.
It depends if they're first or second or third. Like, if they're distant, it's fine, but if it's first or second, then pack it in, lads. But yeah, that's just
another fun bit of trivia that I've just read, which is hilarious. They fear that, more so obviously the actor, they were worried that the Saeed actor was going to be worried about how they were going to portray him, or wanted him written a certain way. But also they worried about his physical stature because he's 6 foot tall, and the actress plays Naima was only 5 feet, 5'3". So they're like, how are we gonna put them in the same shot? Oh, that's hilarious.
Did he have to kind of bend over like Waluigi,
something like that? But yeah,
Waha!
Yeah, I suppose. Yeah, as we said before, what have they been doing this week?
Well, obviously this will rope into Nick Cotton afterwards. Their shop's been vandalised. Someone broke into the shop, robbed a bunch of fags. We can say that word. It's the 80s. I will say the word. Ash won't. Ash will be like, I'm not getting cancelled. Fuck off. But I'll say it 'cause I'm using it as the term of cigarettes. basically the fags get robbed. So we're not saying it's Nick Cotton, but
Definitely not Nick Cotton. Definitely not Nick Cotton. It was Nick Cotton all along. It was Nick Cotton all along.
the shop gets vandalized, and then throughout the 2 weeks, we see that their marriage becomes a bit rocky. Not like the movie Rocky, but just a bit rocky. It becomes a bit on the rocks. Neymar wants to basically adapt to modern society for the 80s.
Yeah, adopt some Western
Yeah.
like
Tropes.
customs as such, you know.
Yeah. Wake up in the morning, have a cup of tea, or as they call it in India, chai. Complain about. Well, it was modern days we'd complain about Brexit, but since the 80s, complain about the Tories. I think Maggie was a Tory.
Yeah,
I don't know.
I'd just complain about the weather. So.
Yeah, she complained about the weather.
People didn't assume they knew better. I doubt the poor was doing much of complaining, unless it's just about fuck Maggie Thatch.
Yes, when in doubt, blame Margaret Thatcher. She's watching this podcast, I can tell you that much. She's well. I heard she was well into this podcast. Don't know how she's watching it, but she's somehow watching it. But that's just my inside source. But yeah, throughout the weeks we see that again Neymar wants to adapt to modern society for the time being, and so he's like, no, it's still 1965, love. Get that fucking kettle on there now, love, and get me a pint of Stella.
Yeah, I suppose they do have the traditional. Basically, Saeed sees Neymar as a traditional Indian wife. You know, wants all the stuff cleaned, wants the food made for him, and he'll handle the business and he'll handle the money. But the main issue is Saeed's not very competent at all. And he's so fucking useless.
He is useless. So we don't really see much of them for the second half of the week, for week 2, I should say. But we do see them. We do see it in the 2nd of April. It's Saeed, isn't it? Saeed has a fucking. Obviously, we see a brilliant scene of Saeed. He basically gets pissed on.
He does.
There is a brilliant scene where it fucks me because you have Lofty behind the bar with Dirty Dan. Yeah, well, he's not dirty yet, technically.
I mean, he is. He has a mistress. And has had for years. While still married to his wife, who actually loves him. So
we have kind of Dirty Dan and Saeed and Dan's, and then Saeed's like, can I get a drink? And then Lofty's like, yeah, drink. And Dan's like, yeah, Lofty, what drinks do we have? And Lofty's like, beer. Yeah. And then Dan's just like, yeah, we have whiskey, we have shots. It's just, they're going back and forth on what drinks they have. And I'm not saying Leslie Graham can do great comedy, because he kind of does shit the bed in acting, but he does really.
He's a good actor.
He is a good actor.
Just because he sent his fucking career up in flames doesn't mean he was a bad actor.
Right.
He's a fucking idiot.
He was a bit bad in some other TV shows. EastEnders is definitely his highlight, I want to say. Maybe not later years EastEnders when he returns, because
he still did a great job.
Yeah, but they didn't write him. He wasn't in 1987 anymore. He was in 2003. With that aside, he does a great job of being just this heinous bastard. Does Dirty Dan. He just gets fed up with Saeed. He's like, Lofty, will you fetch? Nah. I'd have to say, well, you're not paying me shortly. And he's like, Yeah, and I'm not going to give you any cent if you don't get the woman. And Lofty just runs out and grabs the woman, or grabs Neymar. So he just gets pissed drunk, and like this annoys Den because Saeed starts singing while Den's talking to his mistress, and Den's just like, yeah, listen, and he's just singing. I don't know what he's singing,
No
but
idea.
I wish the song came out in the 80s so he could sing it. I would have loved if he started singing Chumbawamba. I get knocked down, but I get up again. You're never gonna keep me. I would love. I know the song hasn't come out yet, so like we're currently talking about a song that doesn't exist. But like, I would have loved it if he just started singing that. But I get knocked down, but I get back up again. You're never gonna keep me down. He's banging on the tables, like being a complete nuisance. So yeah, that's Saeed and Neymar's marriage. It's on the rocks.
I suppose one thing to look forward to, Neymar's going to strike a bit of a friendship with Pauline very shortly, and they have great chemistry, and it's like they have some really like good chats, and it's great to see. Yeah, there we are. That's all I really have to say. I suppose. Look. All right, Pete. Do we want to start incorporating some like wild predictions for how we think the character's gonna go? So obviously, I know a bit of this. I know kind of how the next 6 months go, but beyond that, I'll be in the same boat as you mostly. Where do you think Saeed and Neymar's marriage? Like, what kind of stuff do you reckon they end up doing?
I think they get divorced. Is my bold prediction. Like they're the forced couple on the square. Obviously, we know the second or third. I don't know how many divorces there was before the massive divorce that we all know, the classic divorce. You know, the good old days.
But I suppose next question: why do you reckon their marriage may fail?
Because it's a loveless marriage, kind of like Den and Angie's. Like they seem more like it's more for a modern example. It's like Keanu and Sharon.
Yeah, there's no real love between them.
It's like a mother and son. Like, fuck's sake, you shot in the car again. Why would you do that? Jesus Christ! Come on, Saeed, you're pissed drunk. Come on, I'll bring you home. Like, it's just that's how I view it.
Fair enough. That's a take. We'll see how it unfolds.
You have any bold predictions?
Well, I know how the marriage ends, so I can't really give a good take. One thing I'll just mention, one thing we've forgotten to write in the document. Obviously, we get to see a bit more of the. This isn't like enough information to be a segment, so just on the little end of this. Obviously, Ian started to show that he wants to become a chef, and Pete is not fucking pleased. Because apparently a chef's fucking, like, a woman's job. But Pete sells fucking fruit and veg.
Yeah.
Like,
I like Pete, shut up. You can't tell what your son to do when you're selling fruit and veg in a market stall. Like, you know what I mean?
It's very funny, but very the double standards, of course.
It's like if Ash went up, Piggy, I want to be a mainstream streamer, and I go, no, you can't be a mainstream streamer. That's a woman's job. And you're like, well, you do a podcast, and it's quite literally like that. Like he's giving out to his son because his son wants to be successful. Obviously, we will find out that he is successful as a chef. Years down the line, after his boxing career. I don't know when his boxing career happens. I just know it happens.
It definitely starts this year.
He will become a chef. There's no point in not saying he won't. He will, because like Ian Beale, like if it was Saeed, we can obviously go, yeah, well, he might not be a chef, but it's like Ian Beale. We obviously know Ian Beale is like one of the most popular characters. So obviously we can't be like, he won't become a chef. And then we're on modern podcast like, he's a chef. But yeah. So yeah, he wants to become a chef and he can't. Dad is unhappy.
Well, he can. I suppose it
Yeah.
is queuing us up for, at some point very soon, the first ever Julia's theme. So look forward to that. But that's kind of all I have to add about Said and Neymar's marriage.
Shall we move on to the next segment,
Yeah.
which is Debbie Wilkins and Andy O'Brien arrive on the square and they're middle class. So obviously, who is Andy? Is it Brian or Brian?
I don't know.
I'll just switch in between them. If
Is
that's
he
all
Irish
right.
or is he Scottish? He's Scottish.
So it's Brian.
Who knows, mate, honestly.
Can we call up Chris Crenshaw and ask him?
Oh, Jesus. The actor's dead from a brain tumour. Jesus.
Oh fuck. Oh fuck.
That's pretty rough.
Rest in peace.
I
There
suppose...
is.
Actually, no, carry on, sorry. I'm spying a lot of stuff from, like, the EastEnders book, and I'm like, oh, information, that's cool. Look at this background information. Carry on.
You can tell it after this.
Yes.
So who are Debbie and Andy? Let's just call them Andy and Debbie. They are two middle class people. I have no idea where they moved into. They moved into a house. That's all I know, but I don't know what house or flat.
Yeah, they moved into the square, obviously they're middle class. Andy and Debbie are middle class. Mostly because of Debbie. Debbie's a banker and obviously like educated, and Andy, well, he is a nurse, but he's not as motivated. And as they join, we slowly get to see that there are just some issues they have that they just can't really get past. Like Andy and Debbie try to like settle down and like make it work, but they just keep going back to the same kind of issues because Debbie's the breadwinner. Debbie's making the most money. Debbie's a successful woman in a man's world. You know, she's a banker. She's an influential banker. She's got a bunch of money. She's paying for everything. And obviously Andy's a nurse, so he feels a little bit inadequate. And a lot of the arguments we see kind of it always kind of comes down to money and comes down to Andy feeling inadequate. Fun little tidbit as well. They currently live in Sharon's flat or Sharon's house.
Oh, it's funny, isn't it? Even in the 80s, they were defunding the NHS.
Who the fuck's Mr. Pickles?
What?
Sorry, I was looking at apparently who lives in that house, and it was a pet rabbit bought by Isaac, who was Patrick's son, who had schizophrenia, who gave to Arthur Fowler Jr. When Cush lived there and Arthur lived there, and yeah, good old Mr. Pickles lived at that residence as well.
Big up, Mr. Pickles. You're probably dead now. I big you up.
Is a rabbit.
Yeah.
But also, there's probably about 70 other Mr. Pickleses. Chokers that rabbits breed.
I know. So yeah. And they're middle class. Now, would you classify yourself as middle class?
No, not at all.
I forgot to mention, even though I was structuring it earlier on, there is lower class, working class, middle class, higher class, and then
Up higher class, some shit like that.
upper higher class, and then obviously royalty.
Yeah,
the royal family get their own fucking level because it's the 80s.
I suppose just going to add to this, in once again the book from EastEnders, The Inside Story. Go buy it; it's really cheap. Essentially, they write that the character of Andy, along with his girlfriend Debbie Wilkins, are an attempt by the writers to represent the influx of middle-class people that are opting in to move to, the more lower working class ends of London. And it's to show that a lot of these residents, as much as they join and they try help, they're just a little bit too much. There's a bit too much of a gap for them to really fit in. Like we'll see in the episodes, as obviously Debbie keeps getting involved. She just can't fucking stop getting involved. There's a part where Ethel, we'll talk about this more later because it's an amazing scene, but where Ethel has a confrontation with Nick. And after the fact, Debbie comes round, brings Ethel a little flower, use all her fancy words around Ethel and Lou Beale. And obviously Lou Beale's looking at her like she's some fucking... Who's this fucking pampered little fucking wanker coming in your house? So it's just, she tries to get involved, but people don't really respect her or like her. And like I said, she's a high earning woman in a man's world, and Andy feels inadequate.
Maybe you shouldn't have worked for the NHS, should you?
But yeah, I suppose, and also just to kind of the original character outline, Debbie and Andy are living together. They're not married, but it's a serious relationship. Andy, as Scott, has a very practical, contented element in his makeup. A succession of foster parents. He always seemed to be part of families that genuinely wanted him. Made him very secure. A little smug, perhaps. Student nurse at Glasgow Royal Infirmary. Unlike Debbie, who's an ambitious woman in a traditionally male world. Andy is an unambitious man working in a traditionally female world. They became in love with the idea that everyone thought they were the perfect couple. The decision to attempt the experiment of living together, a domestic relationship, was a difficult one, and they agonized over it for months. Wouldn't they get bored? Wouldn't they feel imprisoned? How would they fill the hours with only the two of them? They'd want to knock down the walls, put in double glazing, and all the rest of it, forced to move into a different class. They're not Habitat Guardian East End, and they're certainly not Nouveau Rich. But they are, to a lot of people, a possible sign of shape of things to come in the borough.
Yeah. What's your thoughts on them?
I do like them. But it just kind of... I really want to get into some of the reasons why the characters ended up leaving. I really want to do it. Fuck it. Okay, so apparently, according to the actor, he was supposed to marry Angie Watts. Which is actually pretty wild. And it says he would have gone to run the wine bar, which is now the Albert. But obviously that was given to a different character. Essentially, from what we can learn, is the actor and Debbie's actor, they got into a relationship, and basically they rubbed people up the wrong way. But is also kind of another character who was in the... they were... Basically, they got a bit too... They started huffing their own shit and thought it smelt good. And this annoyed the show writers. But they're also just products of EastEnders, well, 80s EastEnders is obviously... Well... There's a reason why nobody really looks back and goes, oh yeah, Andy and Debbie, yeah. Love them. Nobody's thought about them for the last, 40 years, so. But, it's a bit of the middle class, affluent, people. Andy's a bit more likable. Debbie's a bit prickly. And... yeah, he just kind of... The main issue with Andy is he does just kind of I'm not saying he sounds like what people would think an incel sounds like, but he does whine a lot because Debbie's got money and Debbie's in a better position than him. So, you know, we will begin to see what, we'll begin to see how it'll shape up. But yeah.
Can I just say, right, I understand it's EastEnders and like we're gone past the 80s now, but if you didn't want to become a nurse, then don't become a fucking nurse. Don't complain that your bitch is getting more money than you.
Lovely phrasing there. Your bitch. It's tremendous.
Pimping her out.
Not the words I'd use. Well, he obviously wanted to become a nurse, but he wants to be more.
But obviously, like, what were you expecting? Fucking 50 grand per week, like.
It's not a very high-paid job, of course.
Oh.
But I think that Andy believes it is a prestige position. It's just that Debbie doesn't, so, you know, he gets angry.
Okay, I can defend them. It is a prestige, because not many people can say, look, I saved a man's life doing surgery on him, or, like, I helped John Deere down the road, like, his arm was broken and I put it back into place. Like, not many people can say that. Obviously, I agree with that fact. Like, it is, like, to me, it would be a pretty good job to be like, look, lads, I'm not saying I'm the shits. But I
do believe nurses should get a lot more respect for the amount of shit they deal with.
Yeah, because, like, I wouldn't say, like, if I understand, like, people go, yeah, but they're nurses, yeah, but you have to look at the fact that if Abby the nurse, I'll just call her Abby, if she's, like, saving your granddad's life, and she's only getting paid, like, £10 per hour, it's a bit shit. Like, this is the problem I have in Ireland as well. Nurses should be paid the same way builders are paid, because builders get, like, €15 an hour. So I feel like the nurses should be on that list.
They should definitely be bumped up a lot more, for sure.
They should be a higher class. I'm not saying like I want to turn into a fucking higher class. You have to get a medical card. You have to be on a list. But I do think nurses and people in that work region should be paid pretty high, because like they are saving your life, and your granddad's life, or your dad's life, or your mom's life.
It's also just imagine like a lot of the people who like. How am I trying to phrase this? Like, let's say the NHS, for example. A lot of the NHS executives are getting a metric fuck ton of money, and some of that salary could be given to the workers. It's like, mate, honestly, if the nurses aren't going to get a pay rise during during a fucking pandemic, I honestly just give up. Like, the country doesn't want any more nurses at all. It's genuinely shameful.
See, I understand we're in the 80s currently doing this podcast, and I like to keep it in the 80s. But fuck it, we've already mentioned the pandemic that's about to happen in about 40 years. It's funny because, like, in Britain, people are like, we need more people working for us. Yeah, I'll work for you. Right. Do you have 4 years of experience? Do you know how to use a brush? And you mind if you get £8 an hour? You're like, £8? £8 Who do you think I am? Like, that's why a lot of people don't work now, because they know the work they put in won't be justified for the amount of hours they put in.
Yeah, exactly. Does that make sense? Yeah.
Because, like, right, so do you remember when you worked at your local shop? I forget what it was called.
Yeah, the co-op.
Yeah, the co-op. Do you remember when you worked at the co-op?
Yes.
And, like, you were getting paid, I'd assume, £10 an hour.
It was about, like, £9 an hour, yeah.
Yeah. Do you think, for the amount of work you put in, that was a reasonable amount?
No.
Exactly. And
because
I understand
that kind of work is just draining. You slowly just become a fucking mindless drone. And that, honestly, that's not, like, nobody should be made to feel like that if they're just trying to earn, like, a wage.
My point stands that teachers, people who work in, like, shops, People in not restaurants, in fast food places, and nurses and doctors should be paid the same wage as a higher working citizen. They should be all paid £15. I understand people are going to complain at me. Why does Bob, who flips burgers, be paid £15 per hour? Well, he has to deal with your shit, doesn't he? Like when you go in there and go,
I
my Big Mac is slightly brown instead of
I mean,
golden dark.
I'll
You're like, fuck
say
off.
a lot of like retail and public facing work probably ought to pay more, but you know, like the slightly more prestigious like jobs like doctors, kind of nurses, you know, police, these sorts of roles should probably be a fair bit higher.
Yeah, but like I do think everything should be on the same class. There shouldn't be a divide. Does that make sense?
I
Like,
guess. I honestly, mate, I appreciate where you're heading with it, but I also don't have anything to add, or
I'm
probably
just
isn't
saying,
tonally right for this kind of podcast.
we're fucking open the podcast. Like, I don't care what people think. But all I'm saying is, I think everyone should be paid on the same level. And like, just because you're a nurse, you shouldn't be paid lower than fucking Bob, who's like a no, I don't know what high job pays well, but like a high paying job should
Yeah.
not be earning more than a nurse or a person who has to deal with customers coming in going, "Do you know where the shampoo is?" Yeah, if you look at the signs, love, with your fucking eyes, you can fucking see where the shampoo is. Like honestly, that's my opinion. There shouldn't be a divide, but people like saying there should be a divide. So who are we to tell? We're not the Tories. We're not a political party. We're just two YouTubers. I guess we're YouTubers. We're podcasters.
Podcasters, really.
People don't come to us to ask for our political opinions because they'll just go, "You're wrong. I think
I mean,
the
I also
NHL doesn't deserve."
fundamentally, it's like everybody has their own opinions, but if people are looking to us for like political fucking, like a political opinion, like you're looking in the wrong fucking place. We're just two idiots who talk about EastEnders. Like, it's like when people look for an actor, like, actor, what do you think about the gays? And they go, oh, I don't really know all the fuss about it, but it's like, they hate the gays. And it's like, what are you asking an actor anyways? He's paid to say words that somebody else fucking writes. Like, stop asking people who aren't qualified to have an opinion, their opinion.
Exactly. There will always be people who disagree, but just know there's a difference between it being in having an opinion and being an asshole. Famous example is that what's the fucking fella or woman's name from Mr. Beast's channel?
I don't know.
Chris, I think his name is, or her name is. Like if you're giving out that Mr. Beast is supporting trans rights, you're not voicing your opinion. You're just being an asshole. There's a difference. If you're making fun of blacks, minorities, anything like that, because they don't suit with how you view the world, not an opinion, an asshole. Just saying.
All
You can voice your opinion with us, but if you try and overstep your boundaries from an opinion to being an asshole, we will gently just say, pull down your pants and fuck off. Walk the public line of shame.
All right, fair enough. Interesting enough. Funny way to take that. Yeah.
Yeah.
I got nothing else to add to that. That's fucking wonderful stuff, mate.
Could you imagine like just pulling down someone's pants like you have a shit opinion and walk in public with your little knob out. Walk the line. I feel like that's how we get all the Twitter trolls out. That's how we do it. We're just like pull your pants down and walk in public.
But yeah, do you have anything else to say about Debbie and Andy?
No, because we haven't seen much of Debbie and Andy. I thought Andy was he's wearing a nurse's out gown, isn't he? Because a nurse's gown to me is green. It's a green clothes.
Oh really? I guess it's Ireland.
Yeah, in Ireland it's green. So I was just like, why is he becoming a sailor? Like, why is he going on a cruise? I was so confused. I didn't know he was a nurse. Because obviously the nurses' outfits are usually white, but I think they're green over in Ireland. I think they're green. I might be wrong.
They're usually either
but
white or like blue.
Yeah. So I was just like, why is he dressed up to go on a cruise? I thought he was working a cruise. Like, I thought he was just gonna. This is the song that I do with my tequila. This is the song. Like, I thought he was just going. I thought he was just going out for a party. Like, I generally thought that. I was so confused. But yeah. Andy, we hope to see you more. Debbie, stop sticking your nose in my shot. It doesn't smell nice. So let's move on to our final segment, Nick Cotton versus the Square, and the minorities fight back for your right to be a minority. So who is Nick Cotton? Well, if you don't know by now, we're not saying he's a fascist or a neo-Nazi, but he is a fascist and a neo-Nazi.
Definitely showing us some of the characteristics. Just slagging off every single minority on the square, and is recruiting people for a movement.
Look, a quick side note, there is a wrestling thing I want to bring up because it just reminded me, because he's technically a neo-Nazi. There is something from WCW I want to quickly bring up. It doesn't happen until 1996, but I love it so much. There was I forget the actor's name, but there was an actor who played Bane in Batman and Robin, right? And you remember Hulk Hogan, where basically the Dungeon of Doom and the Four Horsemen came together and Zeus, like, to take down Hulk Hogan and Macho Man.
Yes.
Like, so, you know, the final solution, I think it's the final solution, is a Nazi's, like, term.
I don't know.
I believe it's like Nazis, it was a thing used by the Nazis. So WCW didn't know this at this point. So they brought out the guy who played Bane in Batman and Robin, George Clooney's Batman and Robin, I believe. And basically they go, he's the final solution, and then people have to go, you do realise that's the Nazis, right? Like, he's the ultimate solution. I just love that story because they had no idea that was a Nazi term.
It just sounds like a very wrestling thing to do. Just yeah.
It was like Gunther. It was like Gunther, where they're like, "Yeah, we'll give you Gunther something. I've forgotten the last name that we're going to give him," and it was like, that was a Nazi he bought, and they're like, "Oh, he's Gunther," but yeah, still. Sadly, Gunther doesn't appear on EastEnders anytime soon. Sadly, would love to see that 5-star classic between him and Lofty, but we can all dream. But yeah, this is about Nick Cotton fighting the Square. So, what does Nick Cotton do? Well, he's a neo-Nazi basically. At this point, he's a neo-Nazi. I don't know if he grows out of being a neo-Nazi, because people do grow out of it. I believe, like, most people do, most people don't.
Yeah.
It's very hard topic.
I imagine he dropped some of the views.
Yes.
Like,
because,
basically, I don't think it's as much of a part of his character after this point in time. Like, he obviously is always villain, never not a villain, but at some point he just kind of stopped really being there. At some point he stopped targeting minorities.
Yeah. Obviously, what I want to say is, okay, basically, I'm watching a Barnum documentary. There was a neo-Nazi on it, so I just want to bring that up. A former neo-Nazi. You can grow out of it. You can change your ways and become a born-again Christian, Catholic, Protestant, fairy godmother. I don't know. So yeah. Why is he a neo-Nazi? Well, he hates minorities. Because when in doubt, when Britain is shit, who else do you blame? Do we blame the Tories? No. Do we blame the whites? No. But do you know who we blame? The foreigners. Because it's their fault our country's in this shit. It's their fault we had to close down the mines. It's their fault that our world is so shit. It's not the fact that we made it shit. It's their fault they made it shit. So yeah, he hates minorities. Obviously I'm just going to call them foreigners because they're technically in different countries. Some of them aren't, some of them are. So yeah.
I would say minorities in this instance. I just, the last time I heard someone talking about the foreigners, it wasn't really the nicest conversation. So,
But yeah, when in doubt, just blame the minority. There's obviously there's a Turkish person on it. There's a person from India.
They are from Bengali, but with Indian heritage.
There's obviously people from Bengalia, and there is obviously a black person. Because, it's the 80s. So yeah. So what happens basically? Nick is basically going on a rampage. We're not saying he trashed the shop that Saeed and Neymar work at, but he did trash it. He bloody wrecked it. I don't know what he wrote on the walls. I wasn't paying attention. But he wrote stuff, some nasty stuff, some Nazi stuff. Thank you. On the wall. Basically saying, look, your prices are expensive on all this shite. He robbed fags from the store. It's what they use, so I'll just use that term for this episode. So obviously, like, I'm not saying like if I rob the shop, I'd only be taking chocolate. But if I rob the shop, I'm obviously just going to be taking the chocolate. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So you kind of know who robs the shop. Like, if you rob the shop, you take dog treats for your dog. And you'll be the first suspect anyway. So like,
I mean, honestly, there's a bunch of heroin users on this like, it's around the square. It could have been anyone in a sense. Just because Nick Cotton smokes doesn't mean he's gonna nick all the cigarettes.
He might. You never know. He might be puffing on them for months. But yeah, he also deals heroin to some of the square, mainly Mark Fowler. Once. I don't think he ever dealt it to Lofty, because it would be funny to see Lofty on heroin, wouldn't it?
Heroin's not a very fun drug.
I don't really like. What?
I said heroin's not a very fun drug.
So yeah, so obviously, like, he obviously upsets a lot of people. He rubs them the wrong way, like a genie. So when you rub them, like the lamp, the genie will appear. He just rubs them the wrong way, and they all get fed up. So basically, one night when Nick Cotton is threatening Mark Fowler, Kelvin runs in, and it's like, "Oi, lads, you have to see this. He's doing something to Mark." And they all show up. It's like a fucking superhero meeting. You have Tony Carpenter dressed like Superman. It's not dressed like Superman, but it's like Superman. And then you have I think his name's Ali, is it?
Yes.
You have Ali, like, dressed as Batman. You have, like, Lofty, like, Lofty's literally he's just robbing. And they basically beat him up. But like, when I thought they'll beat him up, I thought they'll like beat the crap out of him. No, he just gives him an old slap, an old dig in the stomach, and then just an old slap to the face. There's the fun. I thought, like, when you said beat him up, you'd fucking punch him in the face till his nose broken.
I mean, they're a neighbourhood watch, not a fucking militia.
Well, obviously, if you want to rough them up,
like,
you obviously feed them till
it
he's
sent a
blue.
message that we aren't just going to be preyed upon.
Yeah, but like if you want to send a message to Nick Cotton, you already punch him in the face, take his belt buckle, and sell his belt buckle. And then, like, that sends a message. Take his shoes as well and sell his shoes. Don't fucking just slap him in the face. At least teach him a message. Take his shoes. Just take his shoes. Come on. They don't take his shoes, sadly. And this basically leads on to arguably my favourite scene of the week, where Nick Cotton interrogates Ethel, I nearly said Luby, Ethel Skinner, and he's like, look Ethel, I need money. He doesn't tell her he needs money, but he just asks Ethel, look, get your money out please. And he goes to get her money out, and then realises, oh wait, I'm getting robbed. And basically Nick grabs her in the face, grabs her mouth, and just she tries to scream and she can't scream. And basically he threatens to stand on Willie. Not her Willie, Willie the pug. And basically she does a fucking pounce to him. She's the innovator of the pounce. She just pounces him into a picture frame, and he lands on I think he lands on the chair, and like his face is a bit smashed up, and then like Mark Fowler, who'd done nothing wrong, is just stood there in the way, and he just goes, "Oh, you fucker," and just punches Mark Fowler.
I mean, Mark did try like smack him as well, but obviously Nick got there first.
Yeah. So that leads on to Ethel. This will lead into Ethel basically needs company, so Luby comforts her, and then Debbie walks in, and Debbie's just giving her some flowers. You'll be alright, Ethel. Look after Mary the punk. And basically she gives them Shandy. I think Shandy.
Yep.
And Lou and Ethel have a lovely talk. There is an amazing scene where Ethel wants to read Lou tea leaves.
Yes.
There was something like that. And
or just her palm.
No, it wasn't her palm, it was tea leaves, I believe.
Oh, yeah, it would be tea leaves.
And she reads her tea leaves, basically saying something's going to happen to her family. So yeah, that mainly happens to Ethel, and then we'll get into it in the finale. But we do see that Nick is trying to get more money, and he is failing. So Nick's mainly gone for about an episode. He will be back shortly, and yeah, he's gone in the next episode, I should say.
Yeah, like obviously Nick will be back, but he's definitely playing. He's hiding out for a little bit. He realizes he's been rumbled. He was talking about maybe just doing like one last big job and then like leaving for good. But obviously it's Nick Cotton, so he doesn't ever really. With Nick Cotton, there's always the fear that he will just come back and just like stir shit up. So, not now he's dead, but
well, he's caused good.
But yeah, it's cool to see it's cool to see Tony kind of like lead the charge of just like, I'm not letting Nick like run roughshod on all of you guys. Like, we have a responsibility to not just be like just abused essentially. And you know, he is a very strong like man from the Caribbean. You know, he's from Trinidad, so like he's had to work for everything he's had. So it's just really cool to see him just go, you know what, Nick, I've had enough of your shit, and just rough him up.
Yeah. Not much happens. Obviously, if I can, do you want me to get into the finale then?
Yeah, if you don't have anything else.
In the finale, which will lead into next week, Ethel looks after Mary the Punk's baby. I don't know Mary the Punk's baby's name.
Is it Annie or Alice?
I think it's Annie. Basically, Ethel looks after Annie and Willie. What a great combination. I wish I was Annie. and basically Ethel kidnaps the child, brings her to her flat, and then the duff of the final episode of the week is Mary the Punk banging on Ethel's door. Well, the flat apartment's door that leads into the two flats.
Yeah.
Demanding that she give back her baby. So Ethel, I didn't think this had happened in the first year. I thought this happens in the second year.
No. Definitely
so
happened
Ethel,
like sooner than I expected.
Ethel kidnapped a child.
Yeah. Obviously, this will be a topic in the next week's episode of the Watching Walford 1985. But yeah, might be a special featurette video kind of discussing the storyline. Because it's a fun little small like side story. So it's definitely interesting. It plays a bit on Ethel's history and kind of it gives a bit more of a reason as to why she would kidnap a baby, especially from someone who is, well, very unfit to be a mother like Mary.
Yeah. Do you want to get into the awards?
Yeah, let's do the final thought.
So our final thoughts. We'll go to Ash first, then to me, then the awards. Or do you want to do the awards first?
I'm whatever you want, Piggy. You're the host.
We'll do the awards first and then our final thoughts. I forget the awards because I forget to write them down. I think it's most underrated and who needs slapping down. And
Pretty
Scene of
much.
the Week.
Yeah, Scene of the Week kind of gives or takes, but yeah, underrated and who needs slapping down.
Underrated for me is Willie. He put in a star-studded performance in Ethel's carry-on bag. Really thingy. He looked so scared in that thing. He looked so frightened.
I mean, you would be. I'd be frightened personally.
He was so scared. Obviously, also he nearly got stepped on by Nick.
Yeah.
Could you imagine that's how they killed off Willie? He just steps on him.
Be absolutely tragic.
It'd go down as one of the most depressing EastEnders killings.
Yeah, booted in the head. Not for me. Not my Willie.
Not my Willie. Not my Willie. Who's your most underrated?
Most underrated? Trying to figure out who I went for last week. I think I went for the detective last week. Honestly, I'm gonna go for Andy. He hasn't really done much to warrant being called underrated. Because he's just kind of he's nice, and then Debbie says something about money, and he like immediately gets angry. But I think the character, basically, I look forward to seeing him kind of develop, but I'm also not ready to see how it all unfolds. But Andy's underrated, and well, yeah. That's it.
Who needs slapping down?
God, I'm trying to figure out who I said last week. It's probably if it wasn't last week, it's obviously Nick.
Yeah.
Because but also someone else who's not Nick that needs slapping down. Oh, I mean. Anna, that can happen next week. For a second, I was going to say Ethel because she has just nabbed a fucking child from its mother. But also, I'm just trying to figure out who else has actually been that kind of. Because I felt like it would be too easy to pick Nick, and I think we both picked Nick last week, and if not the week before. I'm gonna give it to the detective, Detective Rich. Why? Because the Dr. Leg's like, so are you going to solve the heroin problem? And he's like, I don't have the resources, mate. Someone else sort it out. Sorry. Massive heroin problem. A heroin epidemic as such. Everybody's using, and you're just like, well. Above my pay grade.
For me, it's a tough one. Saeed. Because poor Dan, he's trying to talk to his mistress on the phone, and Saeed's just being a dick.
I mean, Saeed's definitely, don't be surprised if Saeed pipes up a fair amount on the slapping down, segment. Because, not really a big fan of the character, personally. Don't really like Saeed. Love Namer. Namer's fantastic. But, Saeed is bit of a shite bag.
Bit of a shite bag indeed. So, let's go on to our final thoughts.
Yes. No.
What is your final?
It was a good week for EastEnders, honestly. Each time we agree to do a set of these, I'm just like, bloody hell, gotta watch more EastEnders. And then, like, I'm just watching it, and I'm like, I really like this. Like, it's very easy to get all, like, kind of, like, fuck, I gotta watch EastEnders, then we gotta cover it on the show. But, like, I do, like, classic EastEnders is so easy to get through.
Yeah.
And it was a good week. We're seeing more of the original 24. Debbie and Andy were a part of that crew as well. It's a fun week. It's like just shit happens, and I don't know. It's just, but it's a lot more quaint. It's a lot more. It just feels a lot smaller. And it makes it feel a lot more cozy, I guess. Like, everybody does genuinely seem quite tight-knit. Like, family is important, and it's just a bit of a... Like, honestly, people can go years without actually sharing a scene together in current EastEnders, but, like, everybody talks to everybody. And it does just... It's just really interesting to see the realities of, like, the 80s and, like, the 80s of EastEnders. Like, the more I watch of classic EastEnders, the more I'm just sad, because so many of the characters who were in this era of the show will never get brought back. Or at least not properly.
True.
Like, yeah, sure, bring back the 90s characters, because, yeah, they may have only aged about 30 years, but, like, you know, we could do with so many of these characters back. Like,
Bring
honestly,
back
what if Mary the Punk came back as, like, she's older now, she's got a kid, and, you know, she is this, like, matriarch, and we learn that, yeah, sure, the parenting was hard, but, like, you know, her daughters turned out really well. All things considered. Like, it's a very underrated time in EastEnders as a whole. And I'm just kind of... There are so many characters that I genuinely like and care for that are either dead or just never to be seen again. There we are. What are your final thoughts, Big? How did you find this week?
I love this week. Poor Willie though, nearly got booted in the face. Jesus, I'm trying to imagine. I assume there wouldn't be that much uproar in the 80s, but I'm trying to think. Would there have been? It would have definitely. It would have made EastEnders talked about, but in the wrong reasons. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, true.
Because, like, well, I know you can't show him killing Willie, because, like, that would be fucking horrible. But, like,
I mean, to be fair, it would also absolutely destroy Ethel's character.
It would. But yeah, did love Ethel. So actually kidnapped the child, but that's for next week. Here's the more Ethel and her Willie. Obviously, the characters, it's so weird to see. Everyone feels like a family. Feels like everyone loves each other.
Yes.
Like I think Pete and Dan have a connection.
Oh yeah, best
friends.
mates.
Yeah, I love that how Pete's like, oh, you ring your missus again, did you? Wait to go, lad.
It's also the humor that's like, it's always very down to earth. It's always like the way you joke is you just take the piss out of each other, and like that's how people get through it, you know. Like the second Lou comes over to like, because obviously, you know, Ethel got attacked, so obviously Lou's coming right over, you know. And even like then she's still like as Debbie's like, oh, are you doing okay? And Lou's like, an old bat like her. An old boot like her. Of course she's alright. Like it's just everybody's family, everybody deeply cares about each other. You can tell basically these characters are written as lifelong friends, and it's fantastic to see.
We still need to try and get to watch City Street. That's my one wish, is to watch City Street.
It does sound really cool.
I don't know where it is. EastEnders Lost Media, I think. EastEnders don't have many Lost Medias, but that's probably definitely up there with Lost Media. Because for people who want context, City Street is basically Ethel and Lou in the 40s during World War II.
And Dot.
And Dot. It's weird. It's weird how they have Dot in the 1940s, but like she's not seen until the 40th episode.
Yeah. Yeah, but she was always brought up. It's like in Coronation Street. Vera Duckworth, I would always talk about her Jack, and like he wasn't actually brought in till like a while later, and then later on became one of the most iconic Coronation Street characters, just like Dot is one of the most iconic EastEnders characters.
So obviously Dot is the reason why we have Reese now on EastEnders, so thanks Dot. People are saying that Reese needs to be axed. I hope you join the people who leave me shit comments. Pull your pants down and walk the aisle of shame. But that's for the modern podcast. My thoughts are, I want to see more of this, because I know we've done this with 3 episodes, but my hope is that we end 2023 with also 1985. And if we get to a point where we're in December 1985 by December 2023, that is my one hope. We probably won't be, but we might just.
I mean, there's around 90 odd episodes.
Yeah.
We're going 4 a week. That's about like 22, 23, like. We do like 4. We do like 4 an episode, and we need to get to 90. So that is genuinely about like 22. So about 22 weeks.
We're currently on the 3rd week, so
yeah.
Who knows?
Like like 20 more weeks.
Yeah.
So I reckon it'll coincide with like New Year / like January, February. Honestly, if we get to a point where we kind of sync up, that would be wild. But yeah.
Yeah. So again, my hopes are this podcast takes off. Even if it takes years for it to take off, I still want to see this succeed, because I don't think most EastEnders or soap channels don't do classics. They only do modern.
Well, and just not many people cover it in this way either. So, like, I wish there were more channels that kind of talked about EastEnders in a different way, rather than just like posting the clips. That's why I've like immediately like went, Talking Walford is fantastic. I love Talking Walford. They cover a lot of stuff. I enjoyed Soap Study, is that their name? I like Soap Study, the one who did video on the EastEnders Christmas 2007, one who did the video about Bet Lynch's return and Coronation Street, the one who did Dirty Dan's return in EastEnders. Like, it's just, there's not enough channels that actually cover this kind of stuff, and I'm just happy that we are at the point where we can, like, feasibly cover classic EastEnders and hopefully incentivize some people to catch up with us, because there is a lot of gold here, and the 80s is very, like, underrepresented in terms of, like I said, how many characters who actually still exist on the show. Like, it almost feels like a lot of them are just completely null. So yeah, I hope that at least if we can do something with this, I hope that we can at least make people decide this is actually a good thing, like, this is cool. There we are.
Yeah. I got distracted. I went on Twitter, and I just got a rescreen. So I'm gonna retweet it. I don't care. So that's all I do on Twitter. Is just real focus on the Watching Walford account. And sorry about that. But yeah, I want more people to talk about classic EastEnders. It's my one goal. I hope, just like Mafu and Tom Campbell do on the Patreon of Cultaholic, where they talk about classic SmackDown, and also, what are they called? The Attitude Era podcast, where they also talk about the Attitude Era. Obviously, they call it the Attitude Era podcast, and they talk, and I think it's Kevin Maffin, or I forget his name, and someone else. They do classic SmackDown reviews as well. I kind of want to see that with soaps. I hope we're the first to open this forbidden door where people will just start talking about classic soaps.
Yeah.
Because no one talks about them. They're like, so the 80s, it happened. The 90s, okay, I'll talk about Phil Mitchell coming in.
I mean, it's like why, it's like, hold on. I just saw the Reese clip you retweeted. I too hope that we become, it's also like, it's why I like to cover, like, other soaps a lot more than we actually do. Because there's also a lot of, like, soap stories that are completely, like, underrepresented. But unfortunately, there's only so much time in a day. And there's only so much we can really do without actually kind of, like, we're doing this for fun, right? We're covering this for fun. We're trying to build, like, an EastEnders / soap-based channel for fun. So I suppose if you gain any goodwill from this, just hold that near and dear. And hopefully,
obviously, we are hoping that we get money from this, but we're not forcing you. We're not forcing you to hand over 50 quid. But
we will always be doing this regardless. Nothing will be put behind a paywall. Well, some things will be, but
yeah. Also, I will now have Ash's address on screen and just send us 50 quid to his address. Thanks. Sorry, mate, it couldn't be my address. Your audience is in England. Leave me out of it. Ash is now going to put up my address on the screen, and you can send me Reese's Pieces, Twizzlers, and Gatorade to keep me going. Thank you very much. So yeah, let's just hope this is the start of something. Because as long as you remember that we're trying to build a family, well, not like a family where you sit down and you're like, so Abdul, how was school today? Or Declan, how was school? We just want a family where we can just go, hi lads, we're doing a quickie stream on Christmas Day at 9 o'clock for EastEnders. Will you be there? That kind of thing.
Yeah. Like, we obviously we do have goals and we have ideas we want to do, but you can only really you can only really like put it on when you kind of reach certain point, you know. Like hopefully we just keep. But the one thing I will say that we've managed to do quite well is I think we've done quite a good job at least being persistent. You know, like we've done
Except
the
that one week.
podcast each week, even if we've missed it at the regular time. We've done it at a later time. We covered Love Island, which wrapped. Pretty much did at least 50 episodes of that. And yeah, I hope that one day we don't just kind of lose our like kind of attitude towards covering things, because I think we've done a great job of doing it so far.
Yeah, here's to many more. I've been Piggy from, Ash has been from Watching Walford. Say goodbye, Ash.
Bye bye.
And I want you all now to leave your memories alone. Because I want you to see that there's two lovely blokes here who are willing to entertain you. And yeah, and I'm going to call you, for the 80 fans, when we get into the 90s I will change it, but you are currently all willy heads, so up the willy heads. If you want to be a willy head, let us know in the comments. Type willy heads.
Yes.
And we will see you on the next one. Bye bye.
Bye bye.